Welcome to the Creative Playing Podcast Network. Join us as we review our favorite RPGs, collectible card games, MMOs, video games, PC games, and bring up interesting topics and things that we'd like to share with everyone. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hello again, guys. This is Jim with Creative Playing Podcast. I've got a great published author and module maker and GM, Dan Haas, with us. And Dan, go ahead and tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, well, I just love games in general, but I began playing Dungeons and Dragons when Advanced Dungeons and Dragons first came out in 1978, and I have drifted in and out of Dungeons and Dragons because of life things or my own inclinations over that past 30-something years. And then 5th edition came out, and I've just been really, really happy with 5th edition. And whereas I play games every night. I play games 3 or 4 hours every day. But before 5th edition came out, that was spread across many different games. I played a lot of board games, I even played a little poker. But since 5th edition came out, I play Dungeons and Dragons either as a player or as a DM probably 20 to 25 hours a week. So yeah, I'm really impressed with it, and I haven't got bored with it so far. So I don't know what else you want to know, but yes, I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide.
Alrighty. So the one thing that brought you to my attention was actually the Kickstarter you currently have going on for the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition level 4 to 5 leveling pack, which is actually really great. I just like the format you've got on Kickstarter of here's a package of adventures for this level range. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. I had been aware of Kickstarter and thought it was just a really cool, online thing for years, and always thought, yeah, maybe one of these days I'll have an idea that I can do a Kickstarter for. And so what had happened was we've been playing when the Monster Manual came out. We started a new campaign. I was the DM, and we had first level characters, and there was the Tyranny of Dragons, which is a good published material, but there wasn't a lot of published material out there. There's the Wizard's Amulet is a first level dungeon that was out there, so after 4 sessions, I'd written the adventures for those 4 sessions, which were really just my notes. They were like all DMs do. But I had written adventures back in 3.5 when they had the Living Greyhawk stuff, so I was familiar with writing adventures, Dungeons & Dragons adventures. So I thought, well, that's a good Kickstarter thing. I will polish these up into what published adventures are kind of supposed to look like. I didn't go way overboard with it. I didn't invest a lot of time in graphics or formatting. I just said, yeah. And so I'll put it up on Kickstarter, and if 10 or 12 people are interested in it, then that'll be great. And then I had the first Kickstarter I did for the level 1 adventures had, I think, over 90, almost 100 backers. And so that was amazing. I was like, okay, so there's interest for that. And so then I did the same thing with the level 2 adventures, and then so all the way up. So this is the 4th Kickstarter to take them to 5th level, and each one has been growing with more and more backers each time, and it's really nice to know that you're putting something out there that people want to see and will use. Yeah, it's really very rewarding. I mean, I guess there are people who do get rich off of a Kickstarter, but I wasn't looking to get rich off of Kickstarter. I was just looking to find an audience, who would appreciate what I was doing, and it's very gratifying to see that happen. I'm very, very happy with it. If anybody has any sort of idea that would be appropriate with Kickstarter, I definitely recommend it as a way to go. It's been very, very. I'm very happy with the results. Yep.
That's fantastic, because pretty much I've shown each one of your Kickstarters has gotten at least 100 backers. I mean, and you've got quite a few of them going, so far. So currently, your current Kickstarter's got about 52 hours to go. I'm gonna make sure to edit and post this today, so that way I can hopefully get a few more people to find you on Kickstarter. So all in all, it's been a really positive experience with Kickstarter.
Yes, wholly positive. Yeah, I have had no negative experiences with it at all. Yeah. Usually there's some wrinkle or two that comes in, but yeah, the Kickstarter experience has been 100% positive from my perspective. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So for those of us that may have missed your early adventures, where can someone actually find them online for your
Right.
earlier level packages?
Right. So if you go to drivethroughrpg.com, and that's with a THRU, not an OUGH. So drivethroughrpg.com, and you look up Dan Hass Endeavors. That's what I'm published under there. And each adventure is published individually, and then there are also packets that have them grouped the same as they were published on the Kickstarters. There's the level 1 packet, the level 2 packet, and so forth and so on. Yeah, and what I do is when the Kickstarter is over, I will take all of those, move them to DriveThruRPG, and that actually DriveThruRPG is set up very good for Kickstarters, because you can publish it there, and then DriveThru has tools that lets you send the link to all your backers so that they can then use DriveThruRPG to download it for free. And it has a number of other benefits too, in that they archive your content there too, so that people don't have to keep contacting you to say, oh, I changed computers and need to re-download or whatever. They can just go back to DriveThruRPG and re-download it anytime they need to. Yeah, DriveThruRPGs. I've had almost a 100% positive experience with that. The only negative experience I have was my own fault, so I can't blame DriveThruRPG for that. Yeah.
That's actually fantastic to hear about, because I personally use DriveThruRPG all the time, and it is nice that depending on what computer I'm at, I can go, oh crap, I don't have that PDF here. Go online, click download. Within 3 seconds, I've got the book.
Yeah, really a great service. Yeah.
But that's good to hear from the publisher's side how good it is as well.
Yeah. The problem I ran into, which I can tell you about, it's interesting, but it's kind of tangential, but it's interesting. But in my original adventures, I had almost no graphics, no images at all. I'm not really an image-related guy. And I had several people encourage me to include more artwork in my adventures. So I had contacted this particular person and who had advertised that she had artwork for sale. And I said, yeah, I'd like to have some original artwork for my adventures. And then there's no apparently about it. She did. She just went out to the web and just grabbed a bunch of other people's art and presented it as her own. And so this is actually the last Kickstarter that I did. She represented it as her own, and I included it in my adventures. And the day I published it on DriveThruRPG, several of the artists, and they were right to do this. I said, hey, this guy's using my artwork without my permission. And then so DriveThruRPG pulled it all down and notified me, said, and so I had to go through and pull out all that artwork out of my material and republish it. But that wasn't DriveThruRPG's fault. I just didn't properly vet my provider. Yeah, I take my responsibility in that affair. So
yeah, that was someone else's breach of ethics, basically. Because I mean, if in goodwill you commission artwork, you're expecting someone to make something new and original for you.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it was a bad situation, and I don't really have a advice on how to avoid that, unless you do the artwork yourself, I guess. Then it's yours. But yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, with our gaming group, we're kind of artistically challenged when it comes to drawing. So it's the same way of, going out and commissioning folks to do art for us. But
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
the same way. I have my art skills are quite poor. Yeah, yeah. I did find an excellent online tool for creating maps that dramatically increased my the quality of the maps I was making. But yeah, as far as character drawings and that sort of stuff, it would be great if I were better at it, but I'm just not.
See, we all have our own creative talents, and it comes out in different ways.
Right? Yeah.
But that does speak well of Drive-Thru RPG that they from their end protected the people's interest in their artwork.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I don't blame our Drive-Thru RPG for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just I just was in a bad situation that was my fault, really, I guess. Yeah. But no, I wholly recommend DriveThruRPG.com. Yeah, they're a quality service. Yeah, I definitely recommend them. Yeah.
Okay, since you have played D&D for so long, here's a random question for you. What's your favorite D&D published adventure that was released by the company? Is there any one that particularly sticks out?
And this is probably part nostalgia, but the Keep of the Borderlands was, to this day, is my favorite. We ran that and restocked it, and I don't know how many times in the 70s and 80s that I both as a player and a DM that we could keep it. I'm sure everyone who's played D&D for any amount of time is familiar with Keep of the Borderlands.
It's
kind of a legendary adventure. So yeah, but that's my favorite.
Yeah, that is actually an awesome sandbox game adventure. So that way you can even have multiple groups going off at the same time in the same adventure.
Yeah. It was. It's a classic. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Okay, so as a fellow GM, describe what your creative process is when you decide to sit down and write something.
So I have I'm DM for 3.5 weekly groups, and the reason I say it 3.5 is one, we alternate who DMs, and then I play in another 1.5, right? So, but as a DM, so I've got 3 groups that I'm looking at, and I try to find something, and I don't like to create. Well, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to create 3 wholly different adventures every week for all 3 groups. So there's I'm looking for some sort of commonality amongst the 3 that I can, and then I'm going to want to vary that. Maybe. So I'll give you an example. One of the PCs in the Thursday night game is on this quest to find these insectoid creatures who made him an orphan. They wiped out his village when he was a baby, and so he has this very elaborate backstory that he had spent a lot of time working on to make his character unique. So I want to encourage that, and I appreciate it. It makes the game interesting for me whenever the players don't just show up and say, okay, I have a wizard. They actually come through and invest the time and energy to make their characters something that I can look at and say, okay, this is going to be interesting to play with. So almost always there will be an encounter, on that Thursday night group where I'm tailoring the overall adventure with at least an encounter for that particular PC because he's invested so much energy in his PC that I don't want to ignore that. And hopefully by showing the other players that I'm willing to do that for him, they will put that much energy into their characters too. So, but there will be some sort of an overarching problem that all 3 groups are going to be attacking, and I'm going to want to see how they do that. Right? That's the fun thing for me is I'm going to present so for example, at this particular moment. And this will be the next set of Kickstarters. There's a cult of Orcus operating in this extremely corrupt city, and the 3 groups are all trying to bring down this cult of Orcus, and they're going about. And so the interesting thing for me is like, okay, how are they going to do that? So I have these challenges that I set up without the intention of locking the parties into a narrow path to victory. I want them to have a broad range. Some of them may want to, if it's looking like it's going to be combat. Some of them may have the option of, a direct assault. Others may try to break up the encounter into factions and pick them off at a piece. Others may try to eliminate it with some sort of deception or negotiation. And I want to have all those options available for them. I want the encounters to be as open-ended as the DM will want to allow. So anyway, I will have an idea. We're going up against the Cult of Orcus, and then I will have the elements of that. So there's a temple dedicated to Orcus where bad things go on, and there's altars and portals to the abyss that they can open and whatever. And then from that point, once I have set up, and I use the encounter guidelines to make it a fair challenge, and from that point on, I'm just the referee, right? So I've established a challenge, and now I present it to the players, and I want to see what they do to overcome that challenge. So that's what's guiding my creative process from my perspective. Does that answer that question? Is that what you were looking for?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I like from the previous adventures that I've actually seen is you do angle towards the crunchier side of encounters. So fights are actually a good solid fight, as opposed to something that's just really easy to get by. So if they choose to hit the wall is going to hit back.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from my experience in 3.5. What happened in 3.5 was that I just moved to Tulsa, and I fell in with a group of very good players who would just pour over the source material and dig out, every way they can use any trait or ability to maximize their power curve, right? So and I still play with them. This is my Monday night players, and they will, they are the definition of min-maxing. So as the DM for them, if it was going to be challenging with them, I had to also go in and find all those exploits that you could use as the, and in the adventures. I try to point out to the DMs, I make it very clear at the beginning that, hey, some of this stuff may be overpowered for your group. If you're DMing a casual set of players, some of the things that I do in there you may not want to do for them because it can be overpowered. So anyway, I spend a lot of my time trying to make it to where the DM is going to be able to make if combat's occurring. It should not be something that the players are going to raffle stomp through. It should be something that the DM is going to be able to present a legitimate challenge to even very min-max players. Yeah, and I if you look in the adventures, I flag those things with a superscript to point out to the DMs. This is something that you may not want to do for everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it's like one of the first pages that I noticed was that script, and I'm like, okay, I can understand that because, hey, I used to have a group of friends that back when we played 3.5, they were hardcore mini-maxers. So if I didn't make a grinder dungeon, they weren't challenged. They pretty much would just walk through everything, and they didn't even break a sweat, So I completely understand the whole, you need to give them something to actually challenge them as opposed to just an exercise to go through.
Right, yeah.
And besides... sometimes that motivates them to not want to fight because they don't want to deplete the resources. Yeah, and there's a whole philosophy on that. There in addition to the players that I'm talking about, I guess I don't know if every urban area is this way, but at least here in Tulsa, there's like a subculture, right, of gamers, and within that subculture, there are some very experienced, very good DMs that we discuss these things with, and we're split on this. Some of them are like, say, their position is that you should fairly routinely present encounters that are unwinnable. That the PCs just should pick up from the clues that we should not fight here, and should just negotiate or hide or whatever to avoid going into combat with
with these type of guns. And then some of them, and I'm on this camp. I believe that you can make if it's set up to be a reasonable combat encounter, it should be winnable by the PCs. That if they are playing their characters very well, but I don't think it's fair to drop a CR-15 on a bunch of 4th level players, for example. But there's a legitimate argument that against in the other camp, and I recognize the legitimacy of that argument, that it keeps players from just going through and just fighting everything, turning them into a bunch of murder hobos, as we say.
Yep.
If they have an occasional encounter where if they fight it, they just die. So that's a legitimate argument. Yeah. But I do in the adventures I write, they could, at least in theory, win the combat if they fight it. So.
And they just need to learn that, okay, sometimes we just shouldn't poke the bear, Even Napoleon learned sometimes you lose.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Eventually you will find that guy who's bigger and tougher than you, and you just may need to retreat.
Yeah, but this is one of the great things about 5th edition, or so I guess some people don't like this. There are a couple of DMs I know who don't like this. Is that in the DMG, you can follow the altering a monster guidelines, and you can make a creature as hard as you want to make it, and its calculated CR will be within the value. Now, its real CR and its calculated CR are two separate things. You can create a creature whose CR is significantly lower than its actual challenge or significantly higher than its actual challenge if you want to. But there's a lot of room in there for DMs to work with.
Yeah, I've been toying around with some combinations, and you can come up with some pretty sick combinations of what you can do to something to jack it up just enough so it fits in the adventure, but you really know it's a solo encounter that you don't want any additional adds to that attack, because it just gets messy.
There are things in there that are, when I read them, I was like, well, that's just not right. But I'll just give you an example. In the DMG guideline, it says, black letter, that the skills of the monster have no effect on CR. And just from a reality standpoint, if there's one creature that is +8 to grapple and one creature that is +2 to grapple, that +8 grappling creature is a lot more of a challenge than the one that is a +2 to grapple. But according to the DMG, that has no effect on CR. So you can look at those things and say, okay, well, I'm going to have a creature with a really big grapple and it doesn't affect its CR, which is, I just inaccurate in actual play, even though that's what they say in the DMG. So.
At least if used properly by the GM.
Right.
+8 to grapple, and it comes up out of the water that the group is walking by. Boom! Instant advantage to the GM.
Yeah. Like I say. And so that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You don't want, if you're looking to really test a min-max group, you can exploit those type of things, but you don't want to drop that on a group of casual players who are more there to play their negotiating bard than they are to go out and try and defeat something that's equally min-max to them.
Definitely. And there's always the GM caveat of, well, it's the story you're going for, so at any point, since you're behind the GM screen, you can kind of nudge some of those numbers just a bit if you see things going the wrong direction.
Yeah, and
as long as it's only done occasionally.
Right, and that is very much an art that comes with. Well, some people develop it early on, but yeah, you want things to be interesting and exciting, and you sometimes have to fudge a few things, maybe shave a couple of hit points or add a couple of hit points to keep the things, on that razor's edge where, you want it to be, up until the last arrow is shot. It's like, oh, are we going to win this or are we going to have to run? And yeah, that makes for a great combat encounter when you're going at it for 15 minutes and you still don't know if you're going to win or lose. Yeah, that's kind of the goal of a combat encounter, is those razor's edge stuff. Yeah.
Definitely, because the way I always gauge it is I either want them cheering like they just got the winning touchdown, or I want them all slumping back in their chairs sighing a sigh of relief when the last creature drops. Because if you get one of those two reactions, you know they just had a great time.
Yeah.
If they're just ho-hum over it and let's go to the next room, it's like, okay, apparently we need to kick this up a notch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And that's actually, going back to my creative process, that's one of the reasons that I run three groups, is that way I can take an adventure and I can refine it as I go through each of those groups, so that hopefully by the time I'm done with the third group, I have taken something and refined it into something that's going to be pretty good. I used to have in the like the first couple of Kickstarters, I had a couple of other GMs who would run it for me too, and then they kind of fell out. They had life things come up and they couldn't do it anymore. So now I just have to run three play tests myself. I would like it if I had at least a couple of other GMs who are running them for me too and could give me notes, but it's hard to find someone who can do that consistently on a timeline. So.
Yeah, getting the whole collaboration of running a game plus giving you a debrief on it afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
Plus getting feedback from their players as well. I mean, that was one thing that was really nice with the D&D Adventure League for the Wizards of the Coast. When D&D Next came out, it was a year of product testing in stores to finally refine what D&D Next was going to become 5th edition. Which I had to give them credit for that one, that they actually pushed so long, so hard to get something everyone likes.
Yes, yeah, and I don't know how many thousands of play testers they had, but they had several dozen just in Tulsa. So I mean, if that was replicated in every urban area across the nation, that's many thousands of play testers all contributing. So yeah, it's no surprise that it turned out to be so good when you consider how much effort they went into making it good.
Yeah, which that's the nice thing, is it does show that they've put so much work into it. So you kind of mentioned earlier about your next project, so I was going to actually ask you about that. Of what project are you working on right now, and what projects can we probably see from you in the future?
Well, what I'm doing now, my intention is to take each level up to 20th, and then have a final set of 3 or 4 epic level adventures. And I'm trying to get out 1 level a month, so that would be another 16 month worth of Kickstarters there, which that's a pretty long timeline there, and you never know what life's going to do to you. But that's my intention, is to go a level a month until I get to 20th. Some of those levels may be narrowed though, because if you look at the XP progression, some of the levels don't have the XP range to support a full 4 or 5 adventures. I don't have my books with me, but I'm going off memory. Seems like 7th level is very narrow.
Yeah, it's more of a quick adventure chain instead of a campaign.
Right, and first level was kind of that way too. I had to work very hard to keep it from being 1 or 2 adventures. It ended up being 3 in my progression, but so that may be contracted down is the point. There may be some months where I'm actually going through 2 levels, which would bring that down something more into the year range, which is sounds a lot less daunting than a year and a half at least. So, but that's my expectation and my goal. So.
Still, it's a fantastic goal to set, and it's actually pretty ambitious for publishing. If a lot of folks out there may not think it, but that's publishing a lot of material. Yeah,
that's true, and that's why I say life could interfere with that. There could be something. I don't see that happening. I have a pretty comfortable employment situation that allows me to play, spend 25 or 30 hours on D&D each week.
So
But,
that's awesome. When
that could change.
When life supports the hobby, that's an amazingly awesome thing.
Yes, yeah. But that would be great. Like I said, that's my expectation and my hope, is to have, a year, maybe a little more than a year from now, complete that up through 20, and then I'm really anxious to see what I can do with some post-20 stuff because I've never done that, and I don't know anyone who has, so that's kind of unexplored territory. Like even Tyranny of Dragons only goes up to 16th level, and I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do with that stuff. So that's kind of exciting for me.
Yeah, I was a little apprehensive when I was seeing the whole taking on Tiamat part. I'm like, that could be a really long adventure just to get to Tiamat's level. In the adventure they did do a good job of. Here's how you can actually make it more understandable of why you guys can take on Tiamat at your level.
Right, with the weakening mechanic to bring her down to something that's manageable. Yeah, I mean she's still.
Oh yeah, she's still one hell of a fight.
Yeah, especially after, depending on how the PCs get into her, and I don't want to give away spoilers on it, but there are various ways to get to her. Some of them easier than others. It did a good job of making a CR30 manageable for 15th level PCs. Yeah, I was very happy with that.
And still,
my only complaint with the tier, both Horde and Rise of Tiamat, is that the players advance very, very quickly. I mean, they're basically one session a level, unless the DM adds a lot of their own content. But if you're not having a bunch of side adventures along the way, the players are, and one session, in my opinion, is not sufficient to really explore what a character is all about at that level. One session at level 6 is not enough to say, okay, this is all the things that my character can do, regardless of the class, as a 6th level character. So to me, it was just very rapid progression, and I would have liked to have seen. I would like to have seen it broader. And when I ran them, I was adding a lot of my own content for that reason. So.
And unfortunately, they do lose a lot of the flavor text if they're just basically burning through it rather than stopping and interacting with the environment, interacting with the NPCs more. Because I agree with that. 1 or 2 4-hour sessions shouldn't be a level. It just seemed a little fast to let's hurry up and get to the end.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I like the story. What I would have rather seen, though, was instead of, so for example, with Rise of Tiamat, instead of it being an 8th to 15th level character progression, I would have rather it seen like a 12 or 13th to 15th level character. So something that the DM would use after the characters were 12 level, and then have 2 or 3 levels in those 8 sessions instead of 1 session per level, the way it usually runs out.
Yeah. Or like I've been toying with in one of our game worlds that we're working on, is the group gets derailed because they lose the trail of the cult, because it doesn't connect smoothly to the next. So basically they go back to adventuring when they find traces of the cult again, or they see a familiar face in town. And all of a sudden, boom, it gets them back on the trail.
Yeah. That would be good too. Yeah. Some way to interject a broader character experience than just progressing through the episodes as presented. Yeah, that would be really good. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least with my main group, because they get sidetracked all the time.
Oh, yeah. What I did when I did. I just completed it for another group a couple of weeks ago with Rise of Tiamat, was I just use a bunch of other dragons. Basically, I had the Drakenhorn going off, and actually when they hit to 13th, and so what was scheduled to be one episode, I was turning into 2 or 3, and they were still progressing fast. But at 13th, they decided that they were ready to march on. So the last 3 episodes were just as presented in the book, and then they fought Tiamat, and and it was fun. Yeah, it was good. It's a good adventure.
Yeah, and even if you don't want to use it as written, you can still buy it, read it, and chop it up and reuse it in your regular adventures too, because there's some really good encounters that are in there.
There are. Yes, there are, and there are some very good characters too, NPCs that make for very interesting interactions. And I'm not giving anything away here because it'll be presented in the first episode. But when the renegade demons show up and say we'll negotiate with the PCs, and it's a good choice for the PCs because you got these good characters saying, well, do we want to ally with these evil, demons?
Yeah, it's the classic, the enemy of my enemy. Well, they don't
yeah.
want things happening, and I don't want things happening. This one time, it just might be okay.
Yeah, but that's really good role playing, right? That forces your lawful good cleric of light or whatever to say, can I compromise my ideals to affiliate with these demons for a better cause?
That's bread and butter drama right there.
Oh yeah. And to me, that is more interesting than a really good combat. I enjoy combat, especially when it's well balanced and ran well. But as a DM, the things I enjoy watching the players is when they're reaching, they're trying to come to grips with their characters' morals and goals, and that to me is much more interesting than combat.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like in our adventure where we did the D&D starter set for 5th edition, the rogue in our group, they had an encounter with a certain dragon. Things went bad because one other character was playing completely in their character, and they had to take the shot, even though the rest of the group was talking. The ranger just had to take the shot. Well, the folk here, I mean. And unfortunately, it resulted in bad things, and 80% of the group got wiped out in one shot, and the rogue managed to save things by talking and saying, here's my gold. And I'm like, you know what? I can't see this young wormling turning down a gold and a worshiper. I mean, part of the character is that they love to corrupt people. So by getting a rogue to work for you, and then all of a sudden the mage who's doing this cute little trick of, hey, look, I made magic coins fall out of the dead spider. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I can see a young dragon laughing at that because, he knows what you're doing, but it's just funny that you're doing it. So, mage, rogue, you're my new vassals. And clean up this garbage that's out there with the rest of your friends.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it's just funny, and the players, they rack themselves because they're like, I'm sorry I did that to everyone, but I had to shoot. And, it's like, no, you did perfect. You were playing in character. You did what your character would do. It wasn't you playing a character. It was your character playing itself. And that's always a beautiful moment when you see the players just slip into their character and do what they have to do, even though every inch of the person playing is saying, don't do it, don't do it. But they just got to play it because it's what the character would do.
Oh yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. We haven't really touched on it, but the adventures I write are in my own campaign setting called Dimgard, which I started back in 2nd edition because 2nd edition was the environments that they were very kind of Renaissance and late medieval, and I wanted something more Dark Ages. But I try to have mechanics in there that force those type of forces onto the players. There are organizations and themes that first of all are much more historically accurate to the way life was in the Dark Ages than D&D usually has, like for example, the use of currency. Almost no one used currency in the Dark Ages. Currency didn't become a widely used phenomena. It was in the Romans, and then it died out, and then it came back again in the late, or in the medieval times. That in the Dark Ages, almost no one had any money. So, in D&D, everything is gold piece driven. How much gold pieces for this kind? But that's just not historically the way economies worked until the late medieval period and Renaissance period. But anyway, I digress. So, but the point of Dimgard was to force those type of moral decisions, because almost no one is acting in 100% virtuous ways or in 100% evil ways, right? People entities are acting in their own self-interest, which are sometimes good and sometimes bad. This is just the way things are. If you look at the history of the Catholic Church, it's a very much a mixed history as far as good and bad goes.
Definitely.
So,
yeah, because I could point my finger and scream witch, and I get a house and property for it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of going out and mining from history. It's like, it's funny, if our village is starving and the village across the way is prosperous, why wouldn't we take our pitchforks and go over there? Human society is full of fantastic adventure ideas.
Yeah, and that actually comes up in the adventures that I published. The two of the cycles had to do with a war between the humans and the orcs, right? And this happened in every session. Every group said, well, can't we call a crusade and get all the surrounding regions? And I had to point out to them, and this is actually in the adventures, is that you don't just call a crusade, because historically when crusaders came, they didn't just come out of the goodness of their heart. They were coming to loot us. And if the creatures that they were fighting didn't have enough loot, very, very often they turned on their hosts. So it was not just something you did cavalierly to call a crusade. You had to make sure that it was worth the risk, that Constantinople was going to get looted or not, before you called a crusade. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all for mining history for good fodder. Yeah.
I mean, let's just look at the Second Crusade. Hey, we've got all these mercenaries running around Europe, basically looting and pillaging. Let's send them to someone else's house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with adventures. Use that NPC to send the adventures away.
Yeah. But it's also funny. I guess history is written by the winners, because the popular conception of the Crusaders were that they were just these holy avengers with purity of heart, out to with 100% faith, and no one was there for for the looting and the capturing of territory. They were just there to do the right thing. But yeah, historically, that's just not accurate.
Yeah, it's there's two sides to every conflict.
Yep.
That, and just because the empire came up through Europe at one point, Europe had to go down there. The whole this for that. And good justification. Let's go get some economy boosts.
Yeah. I was looking at the questions you had sent me there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we've kind of deviated from those. Those are fine, though. I'd much rather just have a good conversation.
Is there anything out there you want to shamelessly plug? Because, hey, we have a podcast. Shamelessly plugging is a good thing.
The adventures I'm publishing are not my primary livelihood, so it's not like, I'm depending on this to pay my rent. It's just nice to have an audience. So, no, there's nothing I'm really looking to shamelessly plug. I just hope people back the Kickstarter and enjoy it. Yeah.
All right. I mean, after all, you put a lot of work into these. I mean, you can definitely tell just reading through the first couple ones. I mean, it's it's nice to get rewarded for your efforts, and if nothing else, pay for supplies for the next one.
Right. Yeah. That's the good thing about the electronic age, is that there's not a lot of overhead to do what I do.
And folks can actually self-publish, which is great.
But here is something I will put out there, because it has come up several times. Wizards of the Coast does not grant explicit you had the open license under 3.5 that anybody could use. So they will And I tried to get a license from them, and they said, well, you're not big enough. So I said, well, is it okay if I do this? And they said, well, we will give you permission. I said, well, are you going to shut me down? And they said, well, we will review your material as needed, and we may shut you down. And so I was very careful. Like, if you read every adventure, the first paragraph says you need to go out and support Wizards of the Coast. You need to buy their material. So I guess they've been happy with that. And anyone who is intent on publishing D&D 5th edition material, I would encourage them that the first thing they do in anything they publish is to plug Wizards of the Coast source material.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to end up getting a cease and desist order dropped on your desk.
Right, and that's why it's come up, is I've had several people contact me and say, how come you haven't gotten a cease and desist? I said, well, my only guess is that they like the fact that I'm publishing a nearly free product that the first paragraph says, go out and buy $150 worth of Wizards of the Coast material. so I would, if anyone is wanting to publish content for 5th edition, my suggestion would be to do something like that with what they're going to publish as well.
Always make sure you tip your hat to the source material.
That's right, yeah.
And give credit where it is due, because they do put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, I think they've done a great job. I think it's bad for any game subculture when the people who are working really hard to produce the content don't get paid. Because if they don't, then they stop producing the content. You know? I mean, and you want to keep a good supply of good content coming.
Definitely.
For sure.
And hey, in 5th edition, the artwork has been fantastic in all of the books. So, it's not like that comes cheap.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
And for you players out there, GMs like to be taken care of too, so bring snacks and drinks.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing to bring a Pepsi for your GM.
So for our closing question, for you personally to play 5th edition, what's your favorite race and class combination?
Well, I've played several characters in 5th edition, but my favorite is a human variant bard. That's just so versatile. You can just do so much with that, And so and so my two favorite characters are both human variant bards. So one of them is a healer, one of them is a caster, and yeah, that's
one of the nice things. Bards are back to being a really good jack of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to go out there with your bard and help everybody.
Everybody loves having a bard in the party. Yeah.
Now, if only they still had bardic immunity.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, it's been great having you on the show, and I'll go ahead and get this edited, and it should be up probably in about an hour and a half or so. So I'll go ahead and shoot you an email once I've got it all edited for you, so that way we can hopefully get it out there to the folks to hear about your Kickstarter and check it out before it's before it finishes tomorrow.
All right. Thanks.
Or actually, it should be finished on Sunday, right?
Friday, the 1st.
Friday. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And everybody at home, thank you for listening.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.